Hi, everybody. I'm here with Jeff Oskin. Is that how you pronounce it, Jeff? I should have asked.
It is indeed perfect.
Oskin. And Jeff, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you've got a varied background that's really interesting.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doctor. So, yes, I have been in and around the technology world for the last 30 odd years, 32 years. I've started and owned my own company. I've run a publicly traded company, and I now serve as an executive and business coach for entrepreneurs, really helping them scale and grow their businesses while at the same time managing and trying to achieve some sort of work-life balance. Having been down the road many, many times in my past, and ultimately love what I do and can't wait for this conversation.
Yeah. So when I've got my coaching hat on, I'm Manny. So 30 plus years that you've had in
Yeah.
various roles and in leadership, how would you define success for yourself, the people you're coaching, the companies you've worked with?
Well, I think I would give you two different answers depending upon the two different stages of my career. So early on, especially when I was first, starting the journey, running a public company, starting my own company, success was the typical entrepreneurial financial metrics. What's our revenue? How much have we grown? Right? What's the profit? Things like that. Things that are typical business owners and business leaders measure. I would say as I've experienced the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, as well as frankly just had some more time and experience, I measure it a little bit differently now. And there's really five kind of criteria I look to measure success. Certainly my achievements, which I would akin to things like revenue and profit. But there's my health, there's my wealth, there's my relationships, there's my happiness. And so I now measure success in the aggregate of how am I doing across those five different kind of themes of my life. Am I investing, in each one of those simultaneously, or am I solely focused on one that ultimately leads me down a bad path?
Yeah, so I really appreciate that kind of broader look at success, and especially when you mention happiness. Like, what do
Hmm.
you think for you? How would you define happiness?
Yeah, for me, in what I do now, especially from a business and executive coaching, I take great pride and joy in seeing people overcome an obstacle, realize an outcome that they had some doubts about, that they didn't think they could necessarily achieve on their own. And if I can, in some way, shape, or form, have a small impetus in having them reach whatever that is of importance to them, that's how I measure that's success to me. And that fills kind of my internal energy in terms of how I think about happiness.
So happiness is kind of lifting others up and getting them to that next level.
Yeah, again, this stage in my life and my career, yeah, that's what it's about for me.
No, no, that's the definition of happiness that I've used. I learned this from Sean Aker, who's a
Mhm.
happiness researcher he was at Harvard. I'm not sure if he's still there. But he says that happiness is the feeling of joy that you get as you strive to fulfill your potential.
Right. I can't argue with that definition.
Yeah, yeah. And embedded in there is like two concepts. One is as you're striving to fulfill your potential, like as you're exercising, you may be sucking air and your muscles are burning, and that may not be a lot of fun in that moment, but then you feel good at the end. So
That's right.
there's an element of embrace the suck.
Very true.
Right. And then the other is striving to fulfill your potential. It's never a finished product, and it's
It
really
is not.
like kind of making. And this comes from Dan Sullivan, making your future bigger than your past, right? To continue
Yep.
to grow and to learn, and to strive.
Yeah, I think life is a lifelong learning journey. I don't think you ever stop. And I think the moment you stop learning, you stop thriving and you stop growing. And so for me, I'm whether it be reading, by listening to podcasts, such as yours, to talking to mentors, to just being around other interesting people. I tend to want to observe and hear and listen and, extract a nugget or two from anybody I can and apply it, wherever appropriate in my life.
Yeah. So leadership and learning kind of go hand in hand.
Very much so. Yeah, it's, I would challenge anybody that says that, they're a leader to think about situations that you have yet to encounter, and you know exactly what you're going to do when you encounter them. Every opportunity that you have before you is an opportunity to learn. We all make mistakes, and those are the greatest opportunity to learn. So, make a decision, and it doesn't quite work out the way you anticipated. Don't beat yourself up over it. Look for the gold in that, and move on to the next one.
And so many times when I talk to leaders, listen to leaders talk, they talk about, they want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, as I look at some of the people that I work with and coach, and the ones that are the most successful are the ones that surround themselves with people that are smarter than them. But I think more importantly, and this is a lesson I learned along the way, make yourself redundant, right? The best leaders. Sure, most entrepreneurs, especially as they're starting out and growing their business, they're really, really good at what they do. That's how they've achieved, whatever the results are that they choose to measure. It becomes, at some point in time, that very success becomes the limiting factor to the company's continued growth. The leaders that can learn to give up control, that can give up decision making, that can empower those around them, and again, make themselves redundant, are the ones that ultimately have the most success in growing their respective organizations, businesses, personal lives, et cetera. It's the ones that I think struggle with giving up that autonomy. That's kind of been their ethos, their psyche for, that's how they got to where they are. Giving that up is hard for people. And for me, that is really where I focus a lot of my energy and working with people to help them kind of get to the next level of leadership.
And it reminds me of a book I read some years ago, but it was Turn the Ship Around. Have you heard of that book?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So that's exactly what that book talks about, right?
Very much so.
Developing the leadership around you so that, not the bottleneck and there's a lot of redundancy.
Absolutely. I would, I'm not in my office with my bookshelf, but if I was there, I'd pull the signed copy off,
Oh,
and hold
wow.
up to the camera for you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I like to buy books to hand out to people for
Mm.
multiple copies and that's one that I keep reordering.
Yeah. It's a fantastic one.
So as you've grown and evolved, kind of from, operator to, owner and leader and now consultant,
Mm.
how does the pressure change for you? Pressures and stresses, what's changed?
Well, for me personally, or for just what I see in business owners?
Well, take a crack at one or the other or both.
Okay. Boy, I would say, I'll talk about me personally, kind of the journey
Yeah.
I went on. So I started a company called Jolt Consulting Group back in 2011, and at the time it was just me, and so I was entirely dependent upon me to produce income. And after 6 months of having none, my wife kind of, in a roundabout way, said, "Hello, what's going on here?" And so, there's certainly one form of pressure to produce for a family. I had, three
Hmm.
kids at the time that were in school, and so that's certainly one kind of pressure. And through a variety of things that entrepreneurs do, just hard work and figuring it out, was able to slowly but surely start growing the company, and eventually grew it, acquired a company along the way and folded it in, and uh, had an organization of just over 10 million and about 50 odd people, and ultimately sold that in 2022. And the pressure and challenges change as the company changes. When you're first starting out, it's all about, am I going to make it? Am I going to survive? Am I going to be one of the lucky few that kind of has a sustainable, repeatable business? And as you start bringing people on and start trying to lead people, the pressures change. You now have mouths to feed. You have other people you become responsible for. And so there's a different kind of pressure there. There's more, it's an awesome responsibility. And then, as the company continues to grow and evolve, the pressure becomes, how do I scale this thing in a manner that I can have a sane life? I don't have to be working 80 hours a day and every single problem goes through me. And so that's where you get into, how do I develop leadership teams? How do I develop the people around me so that, every single thing isn't piling on my desk and it's a never ending battle to just get through the stuff? Because It's a fire hose coming your way. And the successful, and what I have found is that there's a book and a phrase I use all the time with folks, the monkey on the back. I've learned not to take people's monkeys. It's akin to taking their problems, right? And when I, as an kind of the light switched for me from a pressure standpoint, whenever I stopped accepting the monkeys, i.e. the problems, and started asking people what they were going to do about it, what their plan was, i.e., not accepting the monkey, keeping the monkey right on their back where it was, letting them go figure out how to solve it. It helped them learn, it helped the organization grow and mature, and it reduced the burden on me ultimately from a pressure standpoint.
So, in your experience, what does burnout and leadership look like? Have you seen it, and
Absolutely.
what does it look like in an organization?
Boy, it all kinds of different forms and formats. Most business owners, and I fell into this trap myself personally for a period of time. You define success, as revenue growth or profit or number of employees or whatever, and you forget along the way to ask at what cost. What's the cost to my family? What's the cost to the team I'm depending upon? What's the cost to my personal health? And often burnout feels like, geez, I've accomplished that revenue objective, I got that milestone objective, but gosh, I'm still not happy. Why? Do I need more? I need more revenue. I need more profits. So let me keep grinding and grinding. You never get to that point where you feel successful. Um, that's a trap I see a lot of people fall into. And I was in that myself. It was I kept chasing the pot of gold, only to have that pot of gold move. And it was only whenever I finally took a step back and said, what really matters in my life, what really makes me happy, what really is success. That sure, revenue is important and profit's important, don't get me wrong, but it's not what defines me. And it's only when I was able to do that the notion of burnout kind of went away.
So we see people kind of chasing the metric that's right in front of them,
Yeah.
revenue, profits, um, and losing sight of a big picture.
That's right. Yeah, because it's you're tunnel visioned. I've got a mission. I've got I set goals for the year. I set goals for the quarter, and I've got to. I want to check it off. I want to check it off. That's it's what entrepreneurs do, and they become blinded to the world around them, and the implications that has. Missing kids events and family time, and the things you're never going to get back. Fast forward in your life. You're at your last breath on earth. What are you going to regret? Are you going to regret that you know, missed a revenue number, or you were going to regret you missed, an event with your family or your kids or your parents or whatever? And nobody I know says anything to do with revenue. It's about the other things that are important in life. And yet we so often, get wrapped around the axle and trying to grow a business. We forget about that.
So getting that tunnel vision where you just like immersed in the work and
Yeah.
the revenue. What are the other characteristics that you see in those leaders when that starts to happen?
Loneliness is a big one, right? Identity, decision fatigue. You get sick of just making the same decision and just the pressure and just, and ultimately loneliness is the best way I can describe it. You feel isolated. Your friends that you used to hang out with, or they're off because you haven't kept in contact, and you feel alone. Loneliness is one of the biggest kind of unspoken elements of owning a company, because there are many times that there are problems that you as the owner need to address. That who are you going to talk to? Who are you comfortable? You don't want to bring them home. You don't want to necessarily talk to your staff about them. And so you would just absorb those. And as the company grows, as it scales, more of that gets absorbed, and it further exacerbates a loneliness feeling that just is akin to, it's a demotivator. It's frustrating. It's you get tired and fatigued, and there's all kinds of symptoms that kind of wrap itself around that.
So you're hitting on a lot of the parts of burnout, right? That
Yeah.
fatigue, mental and emotional fatigue,
Yeah.
that isolation. There's an attitude of bitterness,
Yeah.
cynicism.
Yep.
It can get from early burnout where you may not be feeling terrible, but it's harder to make decisions. You don't have the energy to put into things. Ultimately, there's a performance problem too, isn't like what sort of performance issues start to develop for the leader who's burnt out?
Well, it often manifests itself in turnover because people, they have a turnover problem in an organization and doesn't understand why, or she doesn't understand why, and oftentimes it has to take a hard look in the mirror because that irritability, you are stressed, you're burnt out, and you're not a necessarily very nice person to be around. And people vote with their feet in
Yeah.
companies. And if there is turnover, if key staff withdraw, there's no communication, there's leave, all of those are indicative of something's going on at the top. And most often there's some notion of this burnout, loneliness, et cetera, that's going on. Stress, right?
So with your CEOs, executives that you're coaching, what are the patterns that you see most commonly, and where's the 80/20? The low hanging fruit that you see kind of pay off for people.
Yeah. The biggest, by far, the biggest one is the number of hours they work. It is oftentimes very strongly correlated to burnout and frustration and stress. And so, what I typically will focus on is understanding what are they spending their time doing and what can they get rid of? What on their plates? I go through an exercise. I make them create a pie chart. I say, write the number of hours at the top of the page, number of hours you work in a week, whatever that is, it is. If it's 40, 60, 80, 100, whatever, just write it up there. It is what it is right now. And ask them to create a pie chart of where does that time go? What are you doing? And just give them time to go off and do that. And then we come back and talk about, each one. So I understand some context around, each of the slices of the pie in that pie chart. And then ask them to do another exercise, which is, okay, I want you to fast forward to clock a year. And I want you to create that same pie chart. First of all, how many hours are you working? You're working the same, you're working less. 9 times out of 10, it's working less. Okay, what's your target? And we come up with whatever number. And I say, okay, now let's do your pie chart again. What are you doing a year from now? And invariably, there's some stuff on there that shrinks. There might be some stuff on there that grows. Okay, you've now told me what it is you don't like doing, yet you are doing. And you've told me what it is you wish you were doing, but currently aren't doing. So we now can put together a game plan to figure out how to get rid of this stuff that you're currently doing that you don't want to be doing. Why aren't you doing? Why are you doing? Do you not have the right team around you? Have you not communicated expectations? And it depends upon the individual, of course, as to exactly what the underlying cause is. But at least we have a frame to talk about, have a conversation about how they can get to where they want to be, somewhere down the road. I would say 8 or 9 times out of 10, that simple exercise done repeatedly over a period of time, reemphasizing the goal we're marching towards and giving up what you said you'd give up, and et cetera, gets them to where they want to go.
No, it's fascinating, right? That pattern just kind of repeats over and over. We're sort of in this culture, the answer to being successful is to work harder,
Yeah,
work
right. Exactly.
more,
That's the
work
expectation,
more.
right? And
Yeah.
and I've seen it, there's plenty of people that I've had the opportunity to work with that have achieved far more than they ever expected by working far fewer hours, far fractions of the hours they used to work. And the primary reason that they're able to do that is they've created a real team. They've offloaded what it is they were doing, 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, um, to a team of people that allows them to work 3 or 4 days a week, 6 to 8 hours a day. And they're far happier as a result because now they're actually doing the things they want to do, instead of feeling obligated to this weight that's on their back of this company and all these decisions I have to make, and I'm sacrificing. I know I want to be doing that. I know I want to be spending time with my family, with my friends, the things I know I want to do that, but I've got this obligation I've got this company. It's my lifeblood. It's my identity, and I can't sacrifice that. And yet, in reality, it's the other stuff they're not doing that's really more important to them.
So it's interesting because you learn what to give up and what to kind of take back on, that's yours, and happiness starts to come about as a result of that.
That's 100%, 100%.
Yeah, yeah. And the not feeling successful feeling, do you think that
Mm.
that also starts to, like, we recalibrate that?
Yeah, because there's parallel conversations around what is success, what is success for you, and what might be for you, Manny, and me might be two different things. But ultimately, that's a very personal, kind of decision. But at the same time, I also know that it is not single threaded. It is not, I have more revenue than the guy or gal next door, or my company grew 20%. Okay, good, good. But that's not enough. There are many, many facets to somebody's life that's ultimately what I think defines for most people success.
And it's just amazing how someone can accumulate, a lot of profits and money, but
And
they're
not be happy.
miserable.
Yeah, not happy. And it's I'll go back to we talked about books. There's a great book that I've given out to folks that I work with and coach called The Five Types of Wealth. And it's all about sure, achievements and revenue and profit is one aspect, not saying to ignore and give that up. But there's my health, there's my relationships, there's my rituals that I have in my life that I want to keep and preserve and carry on and pass down. So getting people to look through multiple lenses as to what really defines wealth. And it's not just your bank account. Great, I have a big bank account, but I'm the loneliest guy in the world and have nobody to spend my the time with, or interact with and have human emotions. Then am I really happy?
So tell me more about this endeavor that you have now, your
Yeah,
company,
new logic.
your coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so New Logic is really all about helping small, mid-sized business owners and leaders grow and scale their companies in today's world. And so, it blends a little bit of my technology background, AI specifically. It brings to bear some operating frameworks that I've come to respect because I've used them successfully, things like scaling up and EOS, Business Made Simple, and I really view those, frankly, as kind of arrows in the quiver, and we'll pull them out as appropriate to help one of those small business owners or leaders achieve something in their company. It could be growth, it could be developing teams, what have you. So, helping organizations like that, and then lastly, developing leaders, developing leadership teams, developing the next generation of talent, because I think, frankly, there's a talent deficit in the world right now from a leadership standpoint. And I think if we can develop more capable leaders that understand not just kind of one aspect of leadership, but truly leaders that lead and inspire other people, I think the world itself will be a better place.
So tell me more about the leadership deficit.
I mean, look around, how inspired. Let's look at the people leading our world, leading our country. How many people are inspired by people in Congress? Pick your president, doesn't matter. It's not a political thing. How many people are truly inspired by, those, and so, I just, if that's the quote unquote best and the brightest that we've got, then we've got a problem. So, I think that, in my own small way, if I can help, again, focused on small, mid-sized business owners, if I can help them develop talent in there, whether it be to help grow their own company or to have those leaders have the confidence to go out and start other companies, or help other organizations grow, that's just going to benefit the world at large.
Very aligned, my philosophy of help more people to help more people.
Yeah,
So if I help two people and they help two people and they help two people, that's
exactly.
how we
It's
change the
compounding
world,
effect.
right? That's how we change the world.
Totally agree, man.
And with your approach, are you kind of working with people one on one, or there are group sessions? What is the
So we do a little bit of both. I
model?
do, yeah. So I've got a couple different programs. I certainly do, individual, work with either individuals or teams alone. But I also then do some group work where I facilitate, facilitate a CEO roundtable where on a monthly basis a group of business owners and CEOs get together and kind of peer advisory group. I'm in the midst of launching a new initiative called Momentum Lab. It is really for, kind of the top two or three people in any company, but bringing together 6 or 7 non-competitive companies to go through a year-long program to help them really grow and scale their business. So helping them have better strategy, better execution, better manage people, improve their use of cash, kind of across those 4 disciplines by a little bit, kind of a combination of some training, as well as, kind of the peer advisory, being able to collaborate with other to get rid of some of that loneliness that again invariably exists.
Yeah. So getting community and connection back into the leadership,
Right.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
So, just I hope to have that Momentum Lab off the ground a little bit later this year, but it's we're looking forward to getting it going.
as we're finishing up, anything that we haven't gone over that you think is important for
Boy, that's a loaded question.
yeah, yeah,
I would say I think that whether it's myself or other coaches, I think the role of a coach is to teach people how to think, not what to think. I think if we can teach people to fish for themselves and make us as coaches obsolete, uh, we've done our job. And so maybe that's just a philosophy of mine. I don't know, but I think again, the more we can make ourselves, just as I encourage CEOs and leaders to make themselves obsolete. If I can do the same, then I've done my job.
great. And where can people find you, Jeff?
Yeah, so newlogic.com. It's newlogiq.com. It's probably the easiest place. LinkedIn. I'm all about LinkedIn, so I'm out there. Email, phone,
Great.
contact you, any of the above.
I appreciate your time and what you've had to share. Thank you so very much.
Manny, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.